Morning, everybody. Welcome back. Today's episode, and every episode before this for the last 3 years, and every episode for the next 4 months is brought to you by, that's right, Black Rifle Coffee. Let's go over to the website. We're going to make this one quick because I feel like I point you at the website every week, but I do that because that's where you can buy their stuff. Dog Days of Summer. Real quick, I'm going to slide down. You have the roast so you can look through. The standard apparel, gear, coffee bundles, coffee sampler, email, and social media below. Let's see what the collection actually is. Pet lovers everywhere, oftentimes like coffee. So what do we got? Dog collar, a lot of dog collars, leashes, stuff that can be used with coffee, a shared love of coffee and dogs. Ooh, the loyalty roast. I don't like K-cups because I actually like myself in my life, but I'm not going to judge anybody on what it is that they may choose to drink when it comes to coffee, how they may choose to drink it. I'm going to correct that statement a little bit. I'm not going to externally judge them. Internally, I'm judging, especially if you use a French press. I don't like the cowboy coffee, the taste on the teeth. I digress. Head over to blackriflecoffee.com. It's an awesome brand, founded by amazing people, and I love what they stand for. My guest today, you know him, it's Mike Glover. As promised, the last time we sat down, which was, I think, about a month ago, we said we were going to do a follow-up. And we did do a follow-up, but we didn't talk about anything about his current legal proceedings because both he and I have been reached out to by a number of people in the legal profession saying, not a good idea to do so. And actually, I don't think it benefits anybody anyway until the proceedings are done. What we talked about today is actually what I think matters. And that is, what do you do when you don't know what to do? What do you do when the path you think you've been on for most of your life takes a J-hook or a hard 90 and throws you out of the vehicle? How do you reinvent yourself? What do you do next when you don't know what next is? That's what we were focusing on today. I wish I could say I had a lot of the answers. I don't, because I still deal with some of these issues every day, and I think a lot of people are out there in the world too. So hopefully this resonates with you. 348 with Mike Glover. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
Is this am I the first one in here?
Yeah.
Wow.
What do you think?
So wait, my camera's, that's in my background and that's in your background?
No, Mike, I put that behind you so it can't be seen. Yeah.
Who made this for you? You stepped it up, man. Proud of you. You've gone a long way.
Just so you know, you've done several podcasts with those signs behind you.
Really?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah.
I don't remember this. I don't recall. I don't recall. What are we talking about today?
Well, first we got to start with hold on, I'm going to pull up
oh, God.
the breaking news here. We should address this. Let me know if this rings a bell. Dear Andy, I'm writing you for help. Mike Glover ate my booty in Provo, Utah jail. I didn't want him to, but that big Asian just wouldn't take no for an answer. My problem is now I'm addicted to Asian boys eating my booty. Stop this man before he hurts someone else. From a very clean booty. Dude, I didn't know you were into tossed salads. Why didn't you tell me about
this
your
guy? You're going to give this guy. He wants all the attention, and he's gotten it. It was on a postcard.
Yeah.
And was the postcard
to
full
the
of
coffee
dudes?
shop. I didn't look at the front side of it.
The front side was dudes.
So that was a picture. So my son works at the coffee shop who took a picture of that and sent it to me and said,
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of this.
Yeah. I've gotten several postcards from him. So whoever you are, I mean.
Well, how many booties did you eat?
2. I was in jail for a week, and this guy has sent me several postcards because my address was leaked on day 2.
Yeah.
And he's gotten a lot of attention. Like it's weird because I know exactly where he's from because the postcard came from.
No, that means it's where it's mailed from.
Yeah, but he's from there. He's not that smart.
He might get a little bit smarter now because you're about to.
I just want to meet this guy. I really want to meet him just to tell him how much I appreciate it.
would you recognize him more from his face, or did you need to check out his cinnamon roll? See if he's got a little frosting on it.
It's highly unlikely he was one of the butts in Utah County Jail.
What was the feedback you got from the last podcast we did?
A lot of people, it was overwhelmingly positive, but a lot of people knew I was angry, and they said, like, I wish you didn't cuss as much and you weren't as angry. And I get that, man. I honestly try to do my best because I know people listen to this in cars with their kids, and I don't want to cuss.
Cock, balls.
No, you can't do that.
I just did it.
I mother effed
Yeah.
a lot because I was angry. I mean, at that point, really the first time it was the first time I had been out of the state and out of this circumstance with you, and we were in South Lake Tahoe with Battleborn Wills.
Yeah.
It was the first time I was like openly able to communicate about what had happened, and it really aggravated the hell out of me. So I'm sorry that I cussed, but I had a lot of passion for the circumstances that I was in that, you know, I'm currently dealing with still. So
I got a tremendous amount of positive feedback as well. And one other thing from a few lawyers, I think, and cops, and that was for me not to allow you to say anything more about your case until all of the legal stuff has resolved itself. So we are not going to talk about that anymore because I know it's not done.
Yeah.
Because it will be used against you.
Yeah, I know that now. And
well, fortunately, I took the episode down. So
you did?
No.
Well, I was going to say, don't take it down. It's too late now. We're committed.
100% don't do that shit. You know me better than that.
Yeah.
But we're not going to talk about it going any further. I want you to get all the way through it free and clear, and then we could talk about whatever the resolution may be.
Yeah, and they're not talking about like the criminal component. They're talking about the civil litigation and a lawsuit against them.
They're talking about anything that may involve a courtroom of any kind. You're just better off dealing with it first, and we can talk about it after everything is signed, sealed, and delivered.
Yeah, and that's aggravating to me. I hate doing that because it really, like, I want to tell people how I feel about stuff, and I hate doing that whole deal, but I get it from a legal perspective, and you get it too.
I get it, and honestly, man,
me.
Here's what I think is actually more valuable. What are you going to do with your life now? I mean, I think you can talk about the impact it's had on Fieldcraft. You started talking about it a little bit. Obviously, it has had an immense impact, but has it changed what you want to do with your life and how you want to live your life? How about even just being off social media for such a substantial period of time?
Well, that's been great. It's actually really been healthy, and I've realized a lot of what I did for the last decade was to push Fieldcraft. I had to develop this habit of waking up every day and being invested in moving the needle forward to advance the company. And so before I put my own personal priorities, I was committed to everything that I was doing with the business. And that's fine. That's what entrepreneurs do. That's what you do. That's what you got to do when you're in the grind of growing something. But since this has happened now 3 months ago, dude, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. What I don't know is, like, I don't know how to get back in the groove of things when I've been derailed the way I have been, and vilified the way I have been. I mean, I honestly, a lot of people might think like I care about people's opinions on it. I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care what your opinion is on me personally. Like every post that I do now on social media, I go on Instagram, I download the app, I post what I post, and then I delete the app. And I do that because I can't stomach to see the app because of all just the toxic stuff that's on it. And I've always felt that way about social media. But I even see it now, like on my posts, like where people will be like, "Oh, isn't this the guy who, beats up women?" And I'm like, wow. You read a headline and you believe everything you read in a couple seconds. And despite all the facts and all the information coming out, that's your position. And likely, if I say, and I'll never say anything to these guys, if I was to defend myself, one, it wouldn't do anything. Two, it wouldn't change their specific perspective because they already committed to going, I vilified Mike, and I don't care if there's evidence that you didn't do it. I don't care if the case was dismissed. I still think you did it, or I still think you're this bad person.
Or they live on you responding.
For sure.
That is what ends up filling their cup. It may not even believe. There are people out there, and this is such a deeper conversation, because it's easy to say you don't care about what people think and say. And I've said that myself, but at the end of the day, like, I do fucking care. And I think that everybody does. Like, is it really possible to not care about what people say? I think it's possible to control how much it impacts you. You ever read the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck?
Yeah, for sure.
I think the truth is more like the not so subtle art of really giving a fuck. I don't think it's possible to not actually care. Like, in your lowest moments or in quiet moments, I worry, or think about, worry is not the right answer, but I think about people that I don't know and what they say. And it's not that it's negative in my life, but I wonder why they feel that way. And it leads me down the path of, are there people out there who actually don't believe what they're saying, but they're so empty, what they're actually trying to do is just try to antagonize a response from you? Like, it's actually the response that fills their cup, and their cup doesn't even have anything to do with the beliefs. They're just trying to needle everybody to get that response.
Yeah, and when I say don't care, I mean I don't let it impact anything in my life, because I do care about a lot of people and a lot of things, but I don't care to take people's opinions, especially in this case, and let it affect the things that I have going on in my life.
I think that's fair.
And moving forward. And the complexities of it is, I have never been derailed like this in my life, meaning I haven't had one day where everything was very clear to me. My trajectory in my career field, my path personally with my family, that was very just, I understood that, and that was just given because that was the path I was on. The following day, I'm in jail for a week, and I don't understand how this happened, nor how I ended up in this situation, and my life has been so derailed where 90 days later, my company is still grossly affected. There are still viral and toxic opinions about what happened, and I still haven't been able to pick up the pieces, meaning I haven't got back into the groove. And I think, one, that's okay, but two, there's no, I just don't know how what to do next or how you do that, because there's no living examples of that. And I think that's okay, man. I don't know. Like, if you were to ask me, like, what's next? I don't know what's next. I honestly, here's what I know what's next. The show Focal Point that we're doing, which has brought me, for the first time, and after all this thing happened, in some kind of purpose where I feel like compelled and motivated about doing something. That's what I got. Yeah. What else you got? I don't know. I'll be teaching for Fieldcraft Survival in different places across the country.
Is that what you want to do?
I don't know what I want, man. For the first time, I don't even know. Like, because everything I knew, now it's been like, for example, let me give you an example. Prepared was my show that I did on YouTube. And the position was based on my validity and my experience in the genre of being prepared, right? Because I had a lot of examples of my past of living that life. Well, how can you, and I know this might be an alternative opinion based on other people looking at me, even from a friend like you, but from me, how can I be in a position to tell people how to be prepared if I don't even know in my own life how to be prepared? And well, it sounds weird saying that out loud, but it's like, that's the honest truth. Like, how can I stand on a platform and tell hundreds of thousands or even potentially millions of people about how they should be prepared when I wasn't prepared? And I know and I get it. There might be some varying opinions about that, but deep down inside me, that's the truth, where I don't feel confident in my own skin to stand in front of people and talk about being prepared when I wasn't remotely prepared, and I never saw it coming, and I don't understand how that could ever happen, and here we are.
It's because you can't prepare for all the variables. You know what I mean? Like, there's no book you could write. There's no course that you could create. There's no curriculum that you could try to pass on to people that will apply to everything. I think being prepared is sometimes about what you do when everything goes to shit, right? Instead of how do you build a storm-proof wall that it can, never, a 20-foot wave will never be through this. Well, sometimes a 60-foot wave comes. And I think the conversation has to shift from this is the wall that you can build that will protect you from 90% of the things, but 10% of the time when your life goes in a direction that you have no idea what to do, how do you prepare yourself to survive in that world? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it has to be prescriptive. Like, chapter 1 is this is how you deal with financial preparation. Chapter 2 is this is how you deal with personal. I think more than anything, it's about what you do now, right? There's no way you can prepare for every variable, but you have the mindset on. I mean, let me ask you this: you going to give up?
No, for sure not. I just don't know what that means, even in my own life right now, because
You don't have to.
Yeah.
We're in a phase, like I was thinking about our military time. We almost never had to find the problems we solved.
Yeah.
We would just go and I look at my first tour, actually no, it was when I was with A Squadron guys. We would sleep all day and get our shit on before the sun went down, and they'd turn on the cell phone network, and all this shit would start pinging, and it would be rack and stack for us. I didn't have to find those fucking problems. And you could go out from sundown to sunup and play whack-a-mole all you wanted to. Extrapolate that over a 20-year career, you have solved a tremendous amount of problems, and absolutely none of them you found yourself. Now we're in our phase of our life where we actually have to find the problems that are solvable, but also that what we want to solve. But you already have the headspace to do that. So you are prepared. You just don't know what road you're on.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You know what I mean? Like like if you're not going to give up, and you're a type of person that views adversity as motivation as opposed to a stumbling block. I actually think there's only two types of people in that world, in that tranche. You're either somebody who, and we know examples of both of these, people who the most minor inconvenience destroys their day because any type of adversity is, I can't deal with this. And then there's the other type of person who, like, if they encounter adversity, it's like logs on the fire for motivation. And those are the people that make it through Special Forces selection programs, or special operations, I should say, because I know the difference between a Green Beret and a Navy SEAL. And we've discussed this. We know what Green Berets and Navy SEAls have in common. Mm-hmm. They all wanted to be SEALs. So I digress. Oh, it's so accurate. I digress. Do you know why SEALs prefer Silver Ranger compasses?
Why?
Because it has a mirror pointing back in your face. You can check your hair.
Yeah, I like that. That's true.
Almost nobody will get that joke except for people who served in the military. Your headspace has already prepared you for whatever's going to be in front of you. I think the most challenging thing for me in life at times is figuring out what the fuck do I want to do? Because I came from a world where that was given to me. And I think that's why people struggle when they get out. It's not that we can't solve problems. We're not used to finding them on our own.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you, from my perspective, this would be the analogy kind of from a military perspective. I interviewed one of the guys that you were in gold with.
Who was it?
One of the senior guys.
Jimmy Foreman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he told me a story about him losing some team guys. Mm-hmm. And it really stuck with me. You podcasted him afterwards, right?
I haven't yet.
Okay. He's a really good dude. I don't even know if that podcast, if we released that yet on Mike Force podcast. But he told me he lost a couple guys from gold. Mm-hmm. And during that op, he was the troop chief. Mm-hmm. And he had told them not to do something very specific. He had said, don't enter or don't go into this specific building because they had barricaded positions. You know, at this time period, that was their TTP. That was their tactic. Barricaded positions, typically with a PKM, a belt fed of some kind, with suicide bombers.
Super fun to deal with.
Super fun to deal with.
That's called back off and calling a JDAM.
Yeah, which I've done before. It's like you don't kick in the door like you typically have done.
It's a little messier.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean you don't kick in the door? That's what we do. It's like, no, you don't until you lose a lot of guys.
You know what I say to those people? It's like, motherfucker, you have never been on the other side of a door that somebody is shooting through and had to dig deep into your pockets for your fucking balls to see if you're going to go through that door.
I know.
The move is you back off and you dump the building.
And you just
know
drop
what I mean?
everything.
Yeah. Unless there's a compelling reason not to.
Well, he lost those guys because they decided to do something that he didn't want, right?
Yeah.
So the analogy for me is it's like losing, in this case, myself, with knowing that what I was telling my guys or what I was telling my family or what I was telling the people who listen to me was all the right thing, right?
Yeah, but
with no expectation.
But what principle of what you have preached to others did you not live up to?
I didn't see it coming, and I prepare for everything and wasn't prepared in my own home. You know, that's the reason
you
it
prepare
hurts.
for everything? You came up here in your Sprinter van, right?
Yeah.
What do you have in there for like an asteroid hitting Montana? Nothing. Right? What do you have in there?
Well, that's a good analogy because that's what it was like. It was like an asteroid hitting.
Yeah, but you can't prepare
Montana.
for everything.
Yeah, I know. I get it, but it's like it's so close to home that it is my home, and it shakes you. You know, it shook me because, and you've known this because we've talked about this while it was going on. You don't expect everything. You expect all these ancillary things to happen. You know, I get confronted on the streets and get in a gunfight, and I'm teaching a course and somebody goes rogue. Like all of these weird things, right? I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that coming, or people wanted me to go to January 6th and be. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. It's stupid. That's like a bait and ambush. Those guys want you to do that. I'm not doing that. And I remember saying that out loud. This was like, I'm waking up to go to your place, 7 a.m, and the next thing you know, at noon, I'm in a jail cell for a week, and then for 55 days, thinking I'm going to spend 30 years in prison, and then having my child taken from me, which is a different subject matter.
But none of that, though, is you violating the principles that you espouse to others. You can't see everything coming.
Yeah. I just don't know how. It's weird for me to even, like, this dickhead who sent the postcard, he sent me a postcard a couple days ago. And he said something is like, now you're just talking about fringe. I imagine he's a liberal because the way he talks on these postcards.
Super racist.
And he called me a right wing, extremist or whatever.
Super racist. That part's true though.
But he said something like, you're talking about Toyotas and all this other stuff, and it's like I don't know what to do on social media anymore because I had a path, I had a trajectory, and I don't feel comfortable with talking about preparedness. It's weird, man. I don't know. It's a weird thing to say out loud because I've never said this out loud, and it's a deeply seated insecurity in me because I'm trying to figure it out. And most people in my situation would likely just say, "Yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm going to readapt and do that." It's like, no, dude. I wake up and go, I don't know what to do with my hands today. I don't know. I've never not worked a day in my life since I joined the Army. And really before that, I worked for my family businesses before that. But I joined the Army at 17. Since that day, I've worked every day of my life. And for the first time, I've woken up now 90 plus days into it and don't know how to operate. I mean, it's like I've been on vacation and I don't know how to vacation because I've been so used to working. Some of it's been nice. I'm working with this coach named Lori who's been helping me with my brain and going down the rabbit hole on nutrients and amino acids and all these protocols, and I've gotten better sleep than I've ever gotten. I'm doing a new protocol with Wolf 21, and that's been great. And I've gotten some decent sleep since I haven't slept really in a few months. But man, it's weird, man. What would you do? What's your advice?
Fuck, man, I hesitate to give advice. It's if I were to tally my own personal life, you know what I mean? Like draw a line down the middle of success on one side and failure on the other. Dude, I don't know how it would actually net out. I'd like to say, I have far more successes than failures. But I'm not so sure that I do. Whether it's personal relationships or personal decisions or fucking stupid things with money or saying dumb things or just falling short of the person that I think people expect me to be. And then there's like, well, do they expect you to be that? Or are you trying to hold yourself to an unrealistic standard? You get fucking lost in Alice in Wonderland with that shit. So I hesitate to give anybody advice on their life. I have been at a place where I didn't know who I was, and that came through in my divorce. In my lowest moments in my divorce, I questioned whether or not I was a good enough person to have a relationship with my kids. Like, what do I have to offer them? What do I have to show them? And like just an absolute, utter, and complete failure as a human being is what I felt like. And you know what's interesting in those moments too? And I bet you this is true of the situation you're in. You know what I didn't think about a single fucking time? All the bullshit that people cared about when we were in the military. What school did you go to? How many deployments did you go on? What awards do you have? What was your rank? I didn't think about that. That shit, when the bullshit facade stripped away, vaporized. How much of our life did we dedicate to that shit? Like literal dick measuring contest, right? The fucking ribbons on your legs. Yeah. Who's got this shinier, the more powerful rank device, or the ribbons, or the deployments, and all? That shit didn't even enter my fucking mind. I felt like I was trying to figure out who I was from a DNA perspective as a human being, and
same, yeah,
dude.
Well, how did you get out of that? How did you? Because everything you said, I'm going through a similar circumstance with my kids, and rebuilding my family with my spouse, and starting really over. How did you? What elements brought you out of it? Was there something like a job or a focus, a mission, jiu-jitsu? What was it?
It definitely wasn't a job, and I think jiu-jitsu can be helpful, but jiu-jitsu can be hurtful too. Leah actually does a really good job of talking about how there's an ability to disassociate when you're on the mat and just think about things at the moment, which can provide your brain an opportunity to solve a lot of problems that you're not thinking about in real time. But then there's also an opportunity for you to get lost in that disassociation. And the whole goal is to find that place where you're not thinking about anything, and then you end up not doing anything. Like for me, the silence of jiu-jitsu and rolling with people and that disassociation, it gives me an opportunity to turn down the static in my life, so I'm more prepared to deal with that static, as opposed to continually looking for that to avoid dealing with the static. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can get lost in – I see some people in this with like morning routines. Like they have this fucking 4-hour morning routine. So their life becomes about this routine as opposed to what the routine's supposed to allow them to do. Like they lose the forest for the trees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're the enlightened, insufferable fucks that I wish would just shut up.
Yeah.
And I'm not against morning routines, but like let's use it for what it can do for you, not get lost and be defined by what it is that we do. So it wasn't a job, because I still don't know what the fuck I do for a living. It wasn't jiu-jitsu, even though jiu-jitsu helped.
Were you base jumping and doing the wingsuit jump?
I had just stopped.
Oh, you had just stopped.
I had just stopped. The last time that I base jumped, or my decision to stop, was when my buddy Alex died.
Yeah.
That one hit me very close to home. I still have a sense of responsibility for his death. Not that I was there, but I was there in very formative times of him learning how to base jump and pursuing that endeavor. I mean, we jumped substantially together for long periods of time. And I wish I had been more of a hard ass with him on some close calls. Not that I don't know whether or not it would change the outcome, but I feel like it might have. And I regret not being more forceful in some of those moments, but it sucked, and it took a long time. I will say a huge portion of what started pulling me out of that was Leah, for sure, because I was open and honest with her about how I was feeling, and it gave me somebody to express those feelings to. I think you can be really dangerous if you try to have those conversations in a mirror as opposed to with. And I'm not like, again, people are probably exhausted with me talking about the value of counseling, but it can have tremendous impact. So I was talking with a counselor at the time as well for an objective third-party view on it. Dude, I had to take it a step at a time, a day at a time. And I had to figure out who I wanted to be. Like what what type of man did I want to be? Whether that be as a partner for Leah, a parent for my kids, a friend to people in my social circle. How do I want to conduct business? Like I had to kind of redefine all of those things for myself, which is fucking tough when you're in your lowest moments.
Was that a reset for you? Like you were living a life, you were resetting everything, and you got a new, fresh look at it. So it was where there was a loss, there was an opportunity to start over and do it right.
Man, I didn't recognize that in the moment. I think there's some truth to that. I didn't recognize that as I was going through it, for sure. I actually was having a hard time seeing the end of some days at that. Like, I just like, this day is never going to fucking end. Like, bad news cascading over bad news over this or that. And like, Jesus fucking Christ, where does this all end? I mean, I think that everybody gets concerned about like winning. I think what became more important for me in those moments was how I win, not whether or not I do win. And I think that's lost on a lot of people.
I think a lot of people want me to, like, there's a lot of feedback of like, you're back. And I don't even know what that means. And I think about this. Everywhere I go, people recognize me. Mm-hmm. And when they recognize me, now I wonder why they recognize me. And I think to myself, okay, and this is very real because I'm potentially with my family. I might be with my children. And there's a guy who sees me and says, "Hey man, I like your stuff." And I hesitate because I'm like, is this guy going to be like, "Hey, I saw," like I was in a restaurant the other day in Utah. This actually happened just this morning as well. But I was in a restaurant in Utah, and some guy comes up to me and he goes, "Hey man, I've seen all the stuff that you've been through. Keep on fighting," right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm so disconnected from maybe who I am, like at my core, which you know who I am because you've been around my family, you know who I am like specifically, versus a representation of who I am. And that's what's confusing to me because I'm like, I think like I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a big deal. Like I don't even know what the hell people even care about this whole thing. But then I see other people saying, stay in the fight, keep doing this. And I'm like, oh. So there are a whole bunch of people who actually want me to stay in the fight and do this thing. That, when I say I care about that because that brings me purpose because I feel responsible. And so when this happened, it stripped me down where I was just surviving. So I really didn't care about what everybody was saying. But now when people are trickling in, especially after our podcast and like, hey man, stay in the fight. Like what you're doing is important. Like preparedness is a focal point for me to focus on my family and rebuilding. You did this, you did that. And I'm like, oh, maybe I am making a profound difference in some people's lives. And if it's just one or a dozen, that's important. And maybe you should stay in it for them. But then I'm also like, what about me? Because when I have done all of that, I don't think about me. I haven't thought about myself in 20 plus years. Because when I joined the military, I didn't do it for social media. We didn't do what we did for the gram. We just did it because we did it. And then when I went into the social media space, it was so foreign and so new to me. I didn't pay attention to what we were doing. I just did it. And now I'm like, oh, maybe there is a responsibility for me to do this thing. And I feel an obligation. But I also feel like for the first time, I have never taken care of myself, which is maybe why I ended up in this situation in the first place, because I wasn't paying attention to what was right in front of me, because I was so worried about impacting and affecting and doing all these things residually outside of my home. So one, it is an opportunity that I could see in the moment for me to redefine myself in a weird way. But I don't know what that means. Like I have conversations with you, with Evan, with people very close to me who own businesses, and I'm like, what do I do next? I had a conversation with Evan recently where he's like, you're not going to know for a year. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, so
you might not know for 2 years.
I might not know for 3 years, right?
But what does it get crazy?
But what does that mean for me in job security? I mean, Me not paying attention for a couple months, being derailed, has nearly destroyed my business that I started 10 years ago, and it's made me sick to my stomach. Me not knowing what to do for a year could certainly do that. I mean, like Sig. I've worked with Sig for years. They dropped me like a bad habit. Do I get some of that? Yes. But do I feel betrayed in a way? Yes. What can I do about it? Nothing. It's not like there's businesses knocking on my door saying like, hey, we're ready to sponsor you. So it's like, I have zero sponsors, zero affiliation, zero income coming in for the first time in my life because I've pushed all of that to the company so we could survive.
You could view what happened with Sig, and I am not familiar. I mean, not really. I have no relationship with Sig whatsoever. I grew up in terms of the military using Sig products, so I appreciate them because I always use them. My recommendation to you on that is treat that like a tuition payment.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lesson to be learned there, and the lesson is in that relationship between you and Sig, they were ultimately interested in what you could provide and do for them.
Of course, yeah.
And they didn't give
it's a business transaction.
They didn't give a fuck
about
what they could do or provide for you.
Yeah. They were good to me when we worked with them.
Those are gifts.
I appreciate them, but
those are gifts.
Yeah.
When individuals or organizations do those, because if it hadn't happened now, don't think for a second it wouldn't have happened in the future. If fill in the blank something else would have happened and you might have needed their support, they would have vaporized overnight.
Yeah, and I'm glad those things kind of derailed. I'm glad I lost people in my network that just were either naysaying or whatever, because it filtered down and demonstrated to me who was really important in my life for real. And so there's a lot of bad, but there's a lot of good that came from the bad. The reason I asked you about the skydiving and the base jumping stuff is because I thought about it for the first time that I was like, I'm going to start base jumping. I'm actually going to do something.
No, you're not.
And I know you wouldn't let me, and I wouldn't let myself, but I wondered why you had gotten into that, because I feel like most men, when they're lost, like I want to get on a motorcycle, and the first thing I did when I got out of jail, I got on a motorcycle and drove into the woods and got away from everybody and just collected myself, and that felt really good to do. But I feel like a lot of guys, when they're running from something and trying to figure it out, not that it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because it actually could be redemption or a good thing for people, especially men. That's one of the reasons that you got into that. I always wanted to ask you that, and I thought about that.
I don't think I was running from anything, and I don't advocate that people run. I think you're better off if you'd stand and take it on the chin and work your way through it. I was already skydiving at the time, and I had been interested in base jumping for a long time, specifically the wingsuit base jumping. It was more a different endeavor that I had been curious about for a long time, and then some economic sponsorship opportunities lined themselves up, and I happened to meet Miles Dasher, the guy who was my mentor in base jumping. He has a first jump course among many in Twin Falls, Idaho, at the Perrine Bridge, which is totally legal there. It's like you take all the legality out of it and you can actually just go focus on not fucking killing yourself.
It's a train up. Like you actually could train.
He does a first jump course.
Oh, that's cool.
And he went with me to Europe the first time and showed me, Italy and the first jumps off Monte Brento and then to the Lauterbrunnen Valley in Switzerland. So it was critical to have him there with me. And Alex was there for a lot of those trips too. And then Alex and I kind of continued on that progression as he was doing other things. But it kind of fell into my lap. At that point in my life, I was just taking every opportunity that I had in front of me because, I was working for CrossFit in the military, moonlighting on the weekends. And by the time I was in that year I knew that the medical discharge was going to come at some point. I went through the PEB process, the MEB PEB process, which I forget what it stands for, Medical Evaluation Board, probably Physical Evaluation Board. I don't know. It takes a while. So I started doing more working for CrossFit. So I had a very good economic off-ramp when I got out of the military. But I was sitting in my fire pit one day and just quit on the spot. I couldn't take it anymore. So I went from making pretty good money I think I was making 150 grand working for CrossFit to zero overnight. And I think my military retirement at that point was like $2,000. It was an issue. I literally went to fucking Craigslist the next day and started selling shit out of the garage. Like, take the burn rate as close to zero as possible. And I found myself in this place where I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know how I was going to do it. Nights looking at the ceiling fan, wondering, like, how does the mortgage, I mean, we had some savings, but like, how does the mortgage pay itself over time? Like, I can do back of the envelope math, and this is what we have, and this is our monthly requirement. Obviously I didn't know you at the time. I would have consulted you for the quantitative aspect of that math, even though it was basic arithmetic because the numbers weren't that large. We're talking like heart palpitations. How do you make this shit work, right? And it may be weird for people to hear you and I talk about that with our background, but I wish people understood, like, special operations it's not Clark Kent. Bullets don't bounce off of us. We're not immune from everyday problems that everybody has, and there are places and corners you can get into where you don't know how the fuck to get out of it. And I've been in them in my life, and so I just took every opportunity that was in front of me at first, and that was like corporate flying, skydiving, base jumping, teaching military members, specifically the end of the Air Force PJ's CCT pipeline. I don't want to say advanced free fall skills, even though that's what they called it. They weren't. It was like an interim between the school and operational. Public speaking. I mean, technical advising work. Did a little bit of stuff, like, you name it. I just said yes to it. And then as I kind of like moved stuff around and like, okay, economically this is working. And the first one to go is the charter flying, because you're taking a big airplane with big suitcases to other people's vacations on times you'd rather be with your own family. And the phone didn't ring all the time. The phone doesn't ring, you don't get paid. So that one went to the side. Skydiving and base jumping was cool, but there's inherent risk in that, especially with base jumping. And when Alex died, that kind of went away. But the skydiving and base jumping is what introduced me to Rogan, which is what started the podcast, which is what, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't have put all the pieces together, but as in a place I didn't know what to do, so I did everything I could and knew that, again, like, there's no way to prepare for all of those scenarios, but I knew I wasn't going to give up. So I stopped worrying about whether or not I was going to survive and started looking at the opportunities that were in front of me. You cannot prepare for every situation, but you already have the headspace to make it through it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. I mean, I actually considered, really for the first time in my life, outside of a professional career, of looking at getting a job. And like, do I just apply for a job on LinkedIn? Like,
what would you apply for?
I don't know.
Do we have a barista position?
Your baristas talked to me. They said I was pouring that nitro pretty good at your Black
It
Rifle.
is a morning shift available.
Put me on the midnight shift.
I'll put in a good word.
I literally considered, like, is that something that I do? Because, like, Fieldcraft is being run by a very competent person, Rob, and that entity needs to kind of cycle on its own, and I need to support it. The best way that I supported it before for at least a year was through media, through Prepared, through my podcast, and then
you
deflecting.
were teaching your ass off too in courses.
I was.
And that's where it comes back to this question that I keep asking myself. What does it mean to win? But how do I want to win? Because you and I both know people that have everything from an external perspective, and they're fucking hollow.
Yeah.
They sacrificed everything to get it.
Yeah.
And how could that be worth it? And it's not for me to define what winning is for people, but I am leaning towards, in my own personal life, like, how I win is actually more important to me.
Well, you're the first person that I saw in the veteran entrepreneur space. Like Tim and I used to hang out all the time because
his name was Timothy.
Yeah, Timothy Kennedy. Because we were, snipers in sister units. We went to sniper school together. So we had history together. And then when I became his sergeant major in 19th Group, I was kind of hanging out and seeing his processes for business because I was new to it because I was working with the CIA and knew I wanted a different path for myself. And I saw how stretched he was. And I talked to Tim at least every week. And man, I don't know how he does it. And it exhausts me seeing him because he tries to balance it all.
Yeah.
Because he's just driven that way. And I saw you for the first time, and you built this ecosystem that was very localized here in Montana.
3 blocks, bro.
Well, dude, I was like, wait, you could do this? You could. And Jocko's the same way, where it's like you wake up and you go to your gym, and then you go to your studio, and then you go back to your coffee shop, and then it's like all within 3 blocks, and your ecosystem is something that you control, but you're not being pulled and too far stretched. I was nearly the complete opposite for a period of time where I was at the disposal of my company to be leveraged to provide support, which I accepted, but it really taxed me personally. And it really just like, I mean, dude, it wore me out. I mean, I was on the road all the time. Every weekend I was on the road.
Yeah.
And I intentionally did that for a period of time. So now I'm like redeveloping it. I want the ecosystem to be modeled like your system or Jocko's system, where I have everything, pulled in. But I also think it's like, who's going to sponsor the Mike Glover show? Nobody. And so I also understand that realism, and I go,
why do you think nobody would sponsor it?
Well, dude, nobody's. I mean, like, one, I'm not the guy to ask. Like, I know how it works. And I know I could ask, and I could leverage relationships and people. I can call you and be like, hey, man, who's on the docket? Who can we do? I just don't want to.
Or you could build it and let them come to you in time.
That's true.
So the other side of the coin to the ecosystem, the triangle that I have, which is, the coffee shop, jiu-jitsu gym, and the podcast studio, which were literally...
Was that intentional?
Oh, God, I wish I could say I had a grandiose architecture. It was kind of. I realized that I was stretched too thin. Why is JSOC the best at doing hostage rescue?
Because they focus.
That's all they do.
Specifically on
right?
one thing.
And I try to explain this to people, development group versus the conventional SEAL teams. It is the same community of people. The development group pulls from the conventional SEAL teams. They put them through an additional level of screening and refinement and training, and you learn some slightly different TTPs. But if you are responsible for doing 100 things at a conventional SEAL team, let's say you do 5 at development group, and you also have 12 to 1, 15 to 1 support personnel to operator ratio, the more I take off somebody's plate, the more you can specialize and actually do a better job. I can do 5 things better than I can do 100. And I realized that I was being stretched too thin. So I actually started cutting stuff away.
And saying no?
No is the most powerful tool that you have access to. It is a more powerful tool than addition. Subtraction is more powerful than addition.
Yeah.
But it comes at a cost. Could I make more money doing other things? Yes. But at what cost? Time away from family? What about, the unseen or uncalculatable cost of missed opportunities? Because maybe I wouldn't even be able to take or even consider things that people present to me because I'm so booked on my schedule that when I get an initial request, I can't even look at it because the first thing I do is I bounce up against my calendar and either drag it to the delete folder or just write back, I can't do it, right? So you might have a missed opportunity cost. But for me, and everybody can define what winning looks like for them. I like money just like everybody else, but for me, money is an ability to buy time. Time that I can either spend it with Leah or my kids or doing activities that all 3 of us, all those things combined, we find to be enriching. But beyond that, what is it buying me? Stupid shit that it's not going to go with me anywhere. I'm not going to be, my kids aren't going to appreciate it if it gets passed on to them. So I would rather carve that away with the knowledge that, I probably can't have the couple other shiny object things because I'm choosing to make less. Because to me, how I win is more important than winning on a spreadsheet somewhere.
Yeah, that minimalist kind of attitude and
doesn't have to be minimalist.
Yeah.
You could be fucking incredibly successful. But also, how many successful people do we know? And it seems like the wealthier you get, your social circle will change. And I am not talking about me in this example. I'm talking about other people I know who have wealth. The guy who has 1 jet is envious of the dude with 2. The guy who has 2 jets is envious of the dude with a fucking island and 6 helicopters. I feel like that is a just escalating Jacob ladder to hell. So success, I think, has to be defined by you, and you have to be really cautious putting your definition of success up against somebody else's. You know what I mean? So it doesn't become competitive.
Yeah, it's weird, man. I've had a lot of good times recently hanging out with my kids where there's no phone, there's no app. I don't have any social media apps on my phone right now.
That also sounds exhausting to download them over and over again.
It is, but it's part of a process for me versus getting a flip phone, which I've considered. Sebastian Younger, like you've interviewed, has a flip phone. He's had it for a long time now. And just maybe it's just ideology in a way, or maybe it's just process. Mm-hmm. It helps me through a process be accountable because I quickly enact behavior of scrolling to the app and clicking on it for
almost like it's designed to have you do that.
Exactly. And I don't have an addictive personality, but doing that, I hate doing that, man.
Dude, those apps, we are the commodity. People forget that if something is free, that just means you're the commodity.
Yeah.
They want your attention and they want your ad revenue.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, some of those ads are good.
So good.
Dude, I bought a $250 tape measure the other day.
Does it have lasers?
Yes.
It likely has lasers.
Dude, it's got green ones. If you hit buttons.
A rangefinder?
No, I don't think it did that. It seems like it has a magnetic tip, though, that you could put on things. And if you hit buttons, like it keeps the measurements on the side.
$250, that's not a bad deal. Send me that link later.
I made a mistake. I was with Leah, and I said, hey, do you think we need a $250 tape measure?
And you knew the answer.
At least once a day, she asked me what's wrong with me. and I generally will have to say, what are we talking about? Because where should we begin? She's like, no, we don't need it. I'm like, okay, I won't get it. I got it the next day. I ordered it the next day. It hasn't shown up yet. I might have to hide it here at the studio. But I don't fucking need that thing.
Yeah.
But that ad was good, dude.
I'm sure the ads are great. I just don't want to be.
Did you? I mean, I can't even show. The TV was so level that they hung up and precisely measured up.
Dude, I've actually. So
point being, I know I didn't need it. Those fucking ads are good.
The whole thing, the whole idea of like pushing social media out of my life has greatly benefited my actual life. And now by redesign and structure of doing this stuff with Focal Point, for example, with Ironclad, and them doing an in-house studio is going to allow me to kind of stay disconnected because it allows me to connect better with people that I love.
It's one of your strongest suits. I think your ability to have a presence online through the mechanisms that benefit you, like you're a YouTube monster.
Yeah.
Right? It's, I mean, you can do it quickly. We literally just finished, like you said, doing the pilot episodes for Focal Point. It doesn't take a long period of time. It can be super empowering and rewarding and enriching for other people who are looking for that information. And I desperately believe that there are people out there who are looking for information that is at least not incredibly biased through either left or right. Not that the world's binary, but at least in the U.S., those are two incredibly magnetizing polarities. I mean, you could do it from home. It maximize time with your kids. I mean, especially on YouTube through AdSense, the way that the revenue comes in, you don't have to go out looking for sponsors. They take care of that shit, right? They get their scrape off the top. So, I mean, there's ways out there.
Yeah. I'm very thankful to Helen at Penguin, who's taken care of me with prepared, my first book, and now I have my second and third book with Penguin. Yeah. That was on. It was very fragile. I could have lost that book deal.
What are you going to write about?
The second book I'm writing about tribe and community.
Is that the one I gave you those dope answers for?
Yeah. That was that I publicly put on. People were like, you could see their names. I'm like,
shit.
Yeah, I know you could see their names. But yeah, it's about like how can you be a better asset to your tribe, and I think that's really cool because I'm asking myself the same questions, and through this experience with people that are in my tribe, it's like, what were their characteristics that made them good members and assets? And then the third book, who knows? I thought about doing it on fight or flight or something like that.
How do you have a book deal for a book you're not even going to write?
I don't know.
Not that you're not going to write, that you don't even know what it's going to be about.
They gave me the latitude to do whatever I want.
God damn it, I'm not living life.
You have a book coming out too, right?
Yeah, you fucking tricked me into it.
I know. That was great.
Was it? Was it great for you?
It was great for you. It was great for people who are going to read your book.
What if the book sucks?
It's not going to suck.
It might suck.
You're actually writing your book. My book
is written.
Ghostwriter. Huh?
My book is written. I submitted the draft.
It's done.
It's not done. I'm working on 2 more. I'm refining 2 chapters, but it is going to be out. We've decided January of 2026.
So that's a long time from now. So we will be able to talk about some of the things that you put in it. But it's a book on leadership. Oh, it's not?
I don't think so. It's a book on keeping your fucking head above water when your life turns upside down around you through the lens of like my own mistakes.
That's really cool. That's a lot different than just the technical writing of leadership. It's like through your own experiences. And
I don't feel like
mistakes you
I
made.
could write that book.
Yeah.
I am not. I had a marginal military career. My highest rank was 03.
Yeah.
Right, 03E. Let's not cheat myself. There were times where I wore 05 as a collar device, but that's a different story and a different meeting that I went to. I really went up and down the chain of command ladder under the supervision of the guy I was working for. He was aware that I was borrowing his Velcro collar device at the time. It's shocking the difference that people give your opinion,
Yeah.
or just the time of day.
Based
It
on
is
rank.
Fucking stupid.
What's 05 in the Navy is captain?
Let me see, lieutenant, commander.
Commander.
So that would be a silver oak leaf. What's
so
that for
it's
you guys, colonel?
Lieutenant colonel. Well, I mean, you could call him colonel, but it'd be lieutenant colonel and then
Why
full
can't
bird.
all the military branches
Is
have the same
it's
shit?
so stupid. Like an E7 in the Navy is like a god.
Yeah,
And
You know
I
what
was
they call
like a
an E3
private.
in the Navy.
What?
Seaman.
Yeah, yeah. As an E7 chief, I was treated like royalty on base, and I was treated
That's what
like
it is in the
shit
Navy
on
too.
my own
Chief
team.
petty officer.
Yeah,
Heavy on the petty, but
yeah. You're treated like dog shit as an E7 in the Army. Like I
E7
literally was
in
a
the
private.
Navy, life is getting better for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You actually get a uniform. What was it called?
You get a different uniform, khakis.
Yeah,
Yeah, you wear
khakis.
khakis, and your dress uniform changes. I don't think I can write a leadership book like that. I mean, I might be able to impart on people leadership lessons, but I didn't. I will actually be curious when the publisher is done with the editing. So it goes through 2 editing reviews. One is for grammatical errors. Sorry for whoever reads the book, because there's probably a couple. The other one is for content, which we're kind of already going through anyway, because I submitted the draft and working my way through it. But I'll be curious what category they put it in.
It's not self-help,
Is it? It's not leadership, but is it?
but it's kind of autobiographical. Is that
No,
biographical?
autobiographical.
Biographical.
Yeah, I just pulled that right out of my ass.
Wow, you just made that.
I just
up.
let it go. I just
It
let this.
sounded like natural.
Sometimes you just let the hands
I think
play.
that's right too. Autobiographical.
No, it's not like, hey, this is me and this is I grew up and this is my life story by any
Yeah.
stretch.
But you're highlighting your mistakes.
Some of them, of which there are plenty.
That's good, man. I think that book's needed.
We'll see.
Less the technical FM, the field manual, and more
Yeah.
less the doctrine, more the experience and the story. So
I've never
people
really
can-
been a doctrine guy.
Yeah,
You know?
I could tell.
Jocko asked me one time on his podcast at what rank I got in the most trouble, and my answer was all of them.
Yeah, you were a javelin ace as a officer, which is impossible.
That is true.
to do.
It's not impossible. It's been done. Once that I know of.
One time. One time.
I came back from that op, and there was an ace of spades sitting on my computer terminal, which is where I spent the rest of the day. So it's fun.
Awesome. Writing up your own sit reps.
I think I had to do a shooter statement and then like the AAR that we submitted upstream.
Yeah.
So
I this whole experience though has made me miss the simplicity of kind of the life that I had before in the military. Do you remember that
aspects?
life?
yeah, but again, remember we were just solving other people's problems. It was a task-centric life, of which we didn't find the tasks.
That's true. All the missions were handed down.
Everything that we did, with the manuals were there. This is how you pack a parachute. Hey, we're going to go jump. Okay, I need to go check out a parachute and pack it.
Very
this way.
doctrinal, despite the
Completely.
unconvention of perspective that we had.
We had leeway on target.
Yeah.
But think about, I mean, did you ever get to pick a target?
No.
I didn't either. We could pick how we prosecuted it from an insertion, extraction, maybe infill, exfil perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't get to rewrite TTPs or doctrine on like what the clearance past the threshold or inside of a courtyard.
I remember a commander telling me once that he wanted me to do a sniper op a specific way. And I was like, and JSOC was watching and overviewing, like analyzing and assessing what we were doing. And I told him in the brief, no, we're not going to do that. And he was adamant about it.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going to do that. And I said it very like firmly. And it was a rural desert objective, and he wanted us to be in ghillie suits across the road like the movies.
Fuck yeah.
And I was like, we have long-range optics for a reason. We have ISR for a reason. I could do long-range surveillance and give you the same information from afar without the risk of compromise, because if we have the risk of compromise, hostages will die. And I nearly said it verbatim like that, and he was not impressed. But it felt good to actually make a decision from that perspective. Mm-hmm. But that was the closest that I ever got to it. So it was like, this is your target, this is your mission, and then I'll adapt. And
you got to choose how you were going to prosecute it. Yeah. But again, like, and maybe at some level of rank that neither you or I achieved, you are picking those things.
Yeah,
I never saw that air.
Yeah, well, that simplicity, like I dreamt about it last night, which is weird. But my brain has reverted back to this safe space.
Yeah.
Of where that world and waking up, like I drove by the Kalispell, the Glacier National Airport, and saw some little birds out there. And I was like, man, I miss those days of that simplicity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're looking at this through rose-colored glasses. How are your interpersonal relationships with people outside of the military during that time?
Non-existent.
Yeah. How about with your significant others?
Didn't exist.
Oh, yeah. Gee, I wonder why. Because we had no work-life balance. You hung out with the dudes that you worked with, and then after work, you hung out with them and talked about the shit you did at work.
Yeah.
It was a work-work balance, right? So, yeah, it was simple. It goes back to that question. How do you want to win?
Yeah.
Because that lifestyle
yeah.
does not extrapolate out for a lifetime.
It doesn't.
It fucking doesn't.
Not even close.
Right? So why did we miss it? Because I miss it too.
Yeah.
Because my responsibilities were so narrow. But because I was focusing on those, I was not being the person that I could have been in so many other areas of my life. And that's the difference between the price versus the cost. So why the fuck do we miss it? I hate to tell you, man, at least my opinion, it wasn't as awesome as we remember.
It's true. Because I remember bitching a lot about it.
Through rose-colored glasses, when you're on the skids of a little bird at a minute out, living your fucking best life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems simple and it seems great.
Yeah.
But think about all the things that we sacrificed to be in that position in that moment.
It's true. What's your 5-year plan as you look at kind of all the things that you've been doing?
World domination.
Yeah, of course. Change agents is obviously dominating.
Man, my 5-year plan. I mean, my life is entering an interesting phase. I take my son to college next Sunday. This episode will come out. I don't even know when the fuck this will come out, but I'm taking him there in August. So Lee and I will be empty nesters. You know, I have a 21-year-old in October.
Crazy, dude.
And my daughter is 16. She's spending time with us right now, so it's awesome. But it's hard to say because I don't want to make large plans until my kids have a little bit more of their feet underneath them, because I want to be able to be there for them if they need me. So I don't want to make overarching because like what if one of these plans is like, oh, I got to – first off, and this goes back to the power of subtraction. If I was presented a crazy we'll pay you $3 million a year to move somewhere else, I would actually say no, because I like where I am. I'd rather have less and be here with the people that I'm with than have more and be in a place that I don't want to be anymore. I would say broadly, 5-year plan is to continue to refine the things that I'm doing now. Like I enjoy hosting the podcast. I get to meet ridiculously interesting people who talk about experiences in their life that I find to be fascinating. Let's keep doing that. The coffee shop is a super interesting case study in, you want to talk about difficult leadership? Have a bunch of teenagers that work for you.
Yeah.
They're way harder to lead than an ODA or a SEAL team, because those guys are so bought in and trained and refined. You can tell them whatever you want to. You treat people at the coffee shop like that and you have nobody working for you anymore. Yeah. It's a different exercise in leadership. It's refinement. It's putting the gas down on the things that I find to be enriching and empowering and that I enjoy, and continuing to keep a scalpel and just carving away all of the excess that I don't need. And sometimes that's people too, man. You know, I think it's easier to cut out activities because maybe those activities take up so much more time. But I think you got to do with people too.
What do you mean?
Sometimes people are more of a succubus than a value add.
Yeah. Yeah, when you were talking about being there for your kids, my mom really stepped up in this situation, as my mom has always stepped up. Greg Lappin, for example, who we know, stepped up. But I think about it from a parent's perspective too, is like, how do you step up and be there for your children and prepare all the things, reinforce the nest so that when you release them and they're free, if something happens, you could still be there for them in every way, financially, emotionally. And I think that's something that for the first time I'm looking at with my kids. I'm like, oh, I have an entire lifetime of them being in the house, and I have to establish a solid foundation at home with my spouse, a healthy situation, activities.
How old are your kids now?
They just turned 5. My twins did.
So let's say that you do have to do a full-on restart, Control-Alt-Delete of your life and reinvent yourself. Imagine where you could be in 13 years when your oldest hits 50 or 18.
Yeah.
You could be at places that you can't even fathom. Like if I had gotten out of the military and I had to write down 100 things that I thought I was going to be doing, owning a coffee shop would not be on there. Hosting a podcast would not be on there. Traveling the world doing public speaking, none of that shit that I actually do now would be on there. So it is completely possible to reinvent yourself. I mean, have you considered that you might need to pass the torch of Fieldcraft to somebody else and intentionally rebuild yourself into something else? Allow Fieldcraft to exist, maybe in a different representation, but that might buy you the space that you could reinvent yourself any way that you want to.
I'm kind of doing that with Greg because, Greg's the professor of jiu-jitsu. He's also, as an experienced contractor and police officer and jiu-jitsu guy, and he's likable. He's got all the characteristics. He stepped up to the plate when I fell out and has taken on the headquarters perspective, and that's freed me up to be able to kind of work through this situation. But I truly am redefining everything right now. And I don't know if that's a coming back publicly at all outside of the ironclad projects that we have with Focal Point. And that's okay.
Do you enjoy doing it? Like the stuff we did?
Oh, yeah.
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 So you don't know where that opportunity will lead, though.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the thing that I found with that phase of my life. I'm not joking when I say that I was in the garage posting shit on Craigslist. I was in the fucking garage.
Yeah.
Posting shit on Craigslist.
I've been doing that for a month, yeah.
I met some interesting people doing that. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing to have crazy people with your home address.
Yeah. Coming into your house, surveying your crap.
Like, can you just take this stand-up paddleboard and get the fuck out of here?
I've sold a lot of stuff, and to be honest,
how freeing
it's been,
does that feel?
It's so freeing, man. I've sold 5 cars, like a Porsche 993, a dually, a whole bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And motorcycles. I sold a motorcycle today.
You ever ask yourself why you bought all that shit in the first place?
Well, a lot of it I bought for content to film. At least that was justification to do stuff with it. But as that accumulated, it certainly taxed my life.
Yeah.
And as I offload it, it certainly is easing my life.
There is the greatest philosopher of our time, Bradley Pitt, obviously, in Fight Club. The things you own end up owning you.
That's true.
I mean, obviously, he didn't write that line, but fuck, man. You want to talk about something the older you get, you start thinking about, man, I don't think Leah will listen to this. I throw shit away when she's gone.
Really? What do you throw away? Her stuff?
Anything that's not bolted down.
Same. I've decided to do
Should
that.
I say out loud if I ever throw away her stuff? Sometimes I do. I didn't say it loud, so that way.
I like that idea, though.
Dude.
Why do you have 5 hammers? Why do you have all this crap?
Why do you have a laser tape measure? I don't know. But what I can say is that I'll get rid of the other tape measures.
Keep the best.
No, I mean subtraction, man. I go into the garage. Most of it is just shit strewn about and like empty cardboard boxes that I'm too lazy to take to the dumpster.
Yeah.
But I go in there and you can think about it, and I can remember the headspace that I was in for, say, purchases, for example, things that you can see and things that you thought you were going to do with them, and you never did. And it costs you like the time to research it, the money to go get it, the time to earn the money to go buy the thing that you never did, the thing that you said you were going to do with it. And it just sits there and it's like, wait. Like the F-150, the Shelby F-150.
Yeah.
Got rid of it like 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
Love that truck.
Yeah.
Had it for 3 years, 10,000 miles on it.
Wow.
The best feeling I ever had about that truck is when I left the lot, when they bought it back from me. Like, what the fuck was I doing? I had all the justifications. I'll wrap it in the, you started a militia on the top of it at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
The Balloon Boys militia. And, God, it was freeing to be out from under that.
Yeah. When you get rid of that stuff and you obviously get the money for it, is the idea now you would rather have not the material object and the security of the cash, or is that irrelevant?
The cash for me, I look at it from what can I do with this? As an example, very good friend of mine, Dan Hart, does a jiu-jitsu retreat in Costa Rica every December.
Yeah.
And God, there's so many cool things about it. One, Tamarindo is really cool. The place, it's in here too where, down in Utah, it's nice to get out and get some fucking vitamin D for a week during the winter months. But we do it at a school, or he does it at a school called Hero BJJ, and they have 200 to 300 local kids that the camps they do throughout the year fund the training for the kids. So it's free. And Dan gives back every single penny to the school. I think he's the only coach that does that. So I look at the cost of that trip, easily paid for in the money that I got by not having the monthly payment on that truck, and the money I got more back from it than I owed on it. That's what I can do with that.
Experience.
It's an experience over a thing.
Yeah, I am just...
And I took all 3 of my kids last year.
Yeah.
And I won't be able to take Tyler because he's going to be in college, but I should be able to take my daughter and my oldest son, Riley. Those experiences, like, there's nothing in your garage that'll be that meaningful to your kids if you were to give it to them when you're gone.
That's true.
It'd be fucking wasted, useless. I would rather have them have that experience traveling the world, getting an understanding of, I mean, how awesome would it be in the U.S. if people were forced to travel to and I'm not saying Costa Rica is a third world country, but a requirement in your 18th year of life is you have to go to a fucking shithole and survive for a month. You imagine how less bitching there would be in the United States.
It's true. It's true.
Like, fuck. Yeah, I'd rather do the experiences, man.
Yeah, I purging all of this crap that I've had, partially paying my legal bills, has been a huge relief. And it's also whittled down the things that I now look at it objectively and I say, is this going to benefit me and my family? Yeah. Or my kids going to get anything out of this Porsche 993 that I said I was going to give to my daughter, 13 years from now? It's like, no. But what will was me selling this and then reinvesting and spending more time with my family. So that's helped out a lot. There's a lot of good that have come out of the bad of all this.
Yeah. It's rough, man. It's been hard to watch you go through it.
Crazy, man.
I hope that the cops, when they had your cell phone, I kept texting like, hey, do you want me to kill this witness? I was trying to text the most fucked up stuff in the hopes that they would.
I saw those pictures you took. I have not touched that cell phone since.
Do you want me to continue to intimidate these people? Send me the code word and I'll kill the DA. I can't help myself. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm just saying I can't help myself sometimes.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey, man. It's a crazy path.
Yeah, I don't think there's I'm wary of anybody out there who says this is the path and this is how you should walk it.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody who's, that's why I've never said it. I mean, partly is like, I have never carried myself on social media or in any format of being perfect and making plenty of mistakes as I'm owning, my vulnerabilities now. It's like, that's just who I am. And maybe that resonates a lot, but at what cost? Being a public figure, which now I realize being in the public, dude, it's insane, man. Everywhere I go, recognize good or bad or indifferent, has been a heavy burden. And now being able to redefine that is actually been interesting, but in a way good, because now I could technically do what I want to do that's going to benefit my family in a different way. And with all the crazy that's going on in the world, like, I mean, we just talked about the 5 topics on Focal Point that are really crazy things that people have no clue about.
That's just happening every day.
That
Maybe not to that level, but like crazy shit is happening.
Well, and we have every single one of those episodes, we have kind of an understanding because we have experience in some specific way to be able to articulate that, versus talking heads on news and radio that have no position, right, or any integrity in talking about anything besides a political spin. And I think that's, people are hungry for that. And that kind of motivates me because I kind of want to do that. I mean, that's interesting to me. It brings me purpose. It's kind of like Prepared, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
And if I focus on Focal Point and that's it, I know we'll crush it. I know we'll do really well in that.
What's the most important tool from somebody from a preparation space? What do you think is the most important tool that they could have prepared?
Foundationally, a core fundamental faith in something.
So their brain.
Their mindset and everything in between their ears. I think that's the most important. That's more important than anything.
And I think you have consistently unpacked that for people. And I don't know how long we've been talking for, but you're talking about your own process and your unwillingness to give up. You're not sure what the future is going to hold, but you're going to figure it out. You want to be there more for your family. You're willing to change and maneuver. I don't see how you think you have failed people when it comes to advising them on how to be prepared. Again, you can't do an A to Z for everything that may encounter your life. You might encounter in your life. It's impossible to do, man. I don't think you should feel like you failed people.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's hard to even articulate how I feel about everything because it's so just muddied.
Yeah, well, you don't have to. You're in the middle of a tornado right now.
Yeah, it's yeah. People always want to like Greg Lappin. He's he got a 3rd-degree felony. He's still dealing with that. I'm still dealing with that and having to potentially back him in court and all this stuff. And I'm like, I can't even believe that he's facing a 3rd-degree felony for something that doesn't exist. And that's taxing and all these things running in the background are taxing. What helps is getting here and doing content and podcasts and I don't think I have to have all the answers. I don't think I'll have anytime soon. Here's what I know I'm doing when I get back. I'm getting my motorcycle prep with Takamoto and going to do every BDR in America, and not for the gram, but for myself. And
like everyone, because I feel like there's a lot.
There's a lot, but my goal is to do all the ones in the region that I could drive to.
Well, you just said the region of America, which is like really big.
I think I could do all the BDRs.
Yeah, and it'll be 147 by the time you're done.
That's true. They're creating new ones every single.
That's what I'm saying. Like let's back it off a little bit.
Well, maybe I'll just do the one closest to me.
Yeah, let's start there.
Let's just start
find
there.
a trailhead.
I'll find a trailhead. I need to do something. Moto therapy for me has helped me a lot because it's always, what was the motorcycle book? The Zen or Art of.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It's a great book.
My son got that for me. He literally bought it for me recently.
Really?
What is it called?
The Art of.
I'm going to find
the
it.
Zen of Motorcycle Maintenance. That's it.
It is not. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Zen and the Art.
You are close, but I'm not giving you that.
It's a great book, man. I read that when I first got out of the military, and I always had motorcycles in the military, from crotch rockets to Harleys to choppers, and it was always a place for me mid or post rotation to come back, get on a bike, at the time go through North Carolina and Tennessee, get on a crotch rocket. And after I got out of jail, getting on a bike helped me a lot. And anytime I was stressed, getting on a motorcycle was able for me, me to get away and do windies and twisties, and working on a bike has been therapy. But I think that's what I want to spend a lot of time doing is exploring the country on a motorcycle. And that's a good start point, I guess. Spending more time with my family and doing that.
Yeah, I dig it.
Crazy. I appreciate your support through everything. It's been a lot of help, man.
I mean, I was trying to undermine you, of course.
You were doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
The secret conversations that you were having with everybody, like Sig, I heard.
I was
You're now
really-
sponsored by them, which is weird.
It's the exact same contract that you had. It's just, I think they might have not erased your name a few times. No, I don't actually have the desire to be, I don't want to be sponsored by a firearm company. I was for a bit. I worked with Christians in Arms for a bit, and the relationship was great. I have nothing negative to say at all about the organization, but, you know, the sponsorship game, I've played it for a long time now, and to a degree, you have to censor who you are because you're not only speaking for yourself, especially if you're making content for them, you're speaking for the brand from an ambassador degree, right? Like you're not directly like as the spokesman, but you're also kind of like a spokesman. It's like I've worked with Origin, which is deeply tied to an activity. Jiu-jitsu, I love. Pete Roberts is a fantastic human being. You know, Jocko is involved in it as well, Deco and Alexei and all the people that I've met through that organization. It's more to me about them than anything. Like I'm willing to have those type of relationships. But man, it's just, God, even just the firearm space in and of itself. It's like a minefield that you are doing jumping jacks and somersaults through.
Yeah, I mean, when I was called a domestic terrorist by the FBI, like, again, just doing what I do and teaching preparedness, for some reason that's a bad thing. And from the government's perspective, that was a constant roller coaster. It's like, oh, my entire company everything got derailed by the government intentionally telling companies like Shopify to shit can us. And it's like, I'm just done with that, man. I'm not done with teaching preparedness and this idea of educating people. I'm done with playing this stupid game around companies that just are afraid of their own shadow. I mean,
subtraction, homie.
Yeah, that's been the greatest thing, is lifting the weight of all the shit, man. It's been great. I feel light. I've lost 20 pounds. Thanks for this too. I mean,
Gabe, he's awesome.
What's the name of it? White
and Light. Gabe Jensen Tattoos on IG.
Yeah, he talked to me, and you had gotten work done by him, and
yeah, I'm going to see him tomorrow to keep finishing up the sleeve.
So I started doing a Shackleton theme sleeve, this is the endurance, and one of his quotes was his actually family motto. Shackleton's family motto was, "Through endurance we conquer," and that meant something to me because I knew I was going to get through this, and I knew it was going to take a while, which I'm in it. I'm in the middle of it now, but I understand that idea of taking it day to day and just playing the long game, and the completion of the sleeve, which is going to be Shackleton theme or expedition endurance themed, was just a representation of that. So big shout out to Gabe. Does real good work.
I paid him a little extra to throw a cock in there.
There's a penis supposedly in this.
I can already see it.
It's the mast. There's a penis mast on this ship. I knew you were going to do that today.
Triumphant. What do you want to close it out with, man? Let's get you back to your fam. We crushed the content today.
We did. We had a good day of content. I do want to close with this voting thing.
Oh, go. Fire away.
So
now you're going to tell people who to vote for? What a fucking arrogant piece of shit.
I know, man. I want people. I don't care who people vote for. I just want them to vote because recently an organization. What's the organization's name?
I believe it's Vote for America.
I want to get that right. It's a 501c3 called Vote for America. Talk specifically about the statistics involving gun owners, hunters, and veterans. Hundreds of thousands of every demographic I just mentioned do not vote. I mean, likely a veteran might be a gun owner and a hunter, but you're talking about in cases like with Joe Cant in Washington, who lost the last election cycle by a few thousand votes, where hundreds of thousands of Republicans in his district weren't even voting.
I think it's because people feel that their vote doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And I don't think it's accidental that they feel that way.
Yeah.
I think anybody involved in the goddamn government, one is, to use a term my kids do, sus. You're not even at the new vernacular phase yet with your kids, are you?
No.
Dude, I get some weird words. So sus, I think, means suspect or suspicious.
It doesn't mean sustanon, like testosterone. Sussed, like you're hyped up on tests.
I don't think so.
No.
Suspect.
I thought it was suspect.
Like suspicious. Suspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. My son would be like, that's sus.
Yeah. What about lit?
Yeah. I mean, that's just fire. You know.
That sus is lit.
Yeah. I am untrustworthy of people in government. I think both parties are equally as guilty of playing as much dirty pool as clean pool. I think by enticing people to not vote, the people who hold power now have a better chance of holding power, and that's what they want more than anything. Yeah. I think almost every problem you have in your life, and you might have to take a little bit more of a macro lens, you are downstream from a voting issue, whether it's what's going on in your school. Let's go to my least favorite organizations on fucking planet Earth, the Homeowners Association. Fuck you, Karen, for telling me how my grass should be mowed, right? And what trees I can have in my yard. Even though sometimes they're elected, I'm using air quotes for the audio-only audience, you can get involved in that. Or you can be the victim of something you chose not to be involved in.
And then bitch and complain about it.
Bitch and complain about it. These, I mean, whether it's policing, it's school, it's local politics, everything from, water usage to recycling to like all of these things, they have an upstream voting component to it, but you have to get involved if you're going to complain.
Yeah, there's hunters and gun owners not registered to vote, for example, in Montana. It's 52,000. But let's compare that to Pennsylvania. 515,000 gun owners and hunters.
That's half the population of Montana.
They're not registered to vote. Virginia 277, Georgia 350,000, North Carolina 370,000. So
it's one of the most critical rights that we have.
We got to vote.
It has to be exercised.
Yeah, and if you want to make an impact, don't just go out and decide potentially to register for the first time or vote for the first time yourself, or maybe vote in a long time. Get your buddies and make it like a community effort. Get out there and vote. I mean, it's important that you do that, man, because if you want to sit here and complain post November 5th about how you didn't vote, you didn't have an impact, and your guy didn't win, well, you know the reason why. You didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, you can either be a participant or a victim.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to end. Go get out there and vote. And it's all this stuff is happening real soon. The world is going to end come November 5th, potentially.
Okay. We putting that out there? That's some gnarly shit to put out there.
That's my last bit of preparedness advice.
Yeah, prepare yourself. World comes to an end November 5th. All right, we're out.